Yeah, I knew some people from who was pictured on the helmet, so it was my teammates. Some of them were people who supported me since my beginning in skeleton sports. Some people we were spending time when we were volunteering together in 2022. We were delivering some aid to people in the Kyiv region. For me, it was very painful, of course, because I was getting ready for this competition. The big goal is to compete with the same helmet in 4 years in France Olympic Games, and to win a first medal for Ukraine in skeleton sport.
So what is your favorite sci-fi physicist movie?
Probably it will be a book.
So I talked to Vladyslav Heraskevych, unfairly, unjustly disqualified Ukrainian athlete, skeleton racer, because he had just intent to wear a helmet which depicted Ukrainian athletes killed by Russia in this war, which means he never even wore it during the competition but still was disqualified. In the same time, Olympic Committee is bringing back Russians to the games, bringing back their flags, and which is big injustice in itself. We talked about that, but not only about that. Vladyslav also has a great project regarding supporting Ukrainian education, because by his first education, by his major, he actually a physicist. We also talk a little bit about his favorite sci-fi physicist movies, and about his meeting where I actually been present with famous American actor Ben Stiller, and about his visit to New York City overall and his speech at the United Nations. About all of this and even more you can hear in this interview, so please share it, follow this channel, and tell your friends about it.
Hello, Vladyslav. It's nice to see you again. We spent with you over a week in New York, and right now we're recording kind of finalizing your visit to United States, to New York this month. And we are in a special place because we're in Ukrainian Museum, and I want to devote few sentences about this place specifically because it's an important Ukrainian place in East Village. And as you see, there is a museum here. It's been established in 1976, so it's exists nearly 50 years at this point, and nearly 50 years it's been telling Ukrainian history, Ukrainian story. And what is interesting, it's one of the many Ukrainian places in New York that people may not know about, which existed for a long time, long before big scale invasion started. And unfortunately, a lot of people figured out about Ukrainian history only after big scale invasion. But this is a good example about the fact that Ukrainian history existed for a long time, and in New York itself, it had a lot of interesting places to share that history. And as you see, we're right now here in a very interesting place, and I wanted to show it to you and also to our viewers. But let's start from your visit to New York. How was it, first of all, and what actually brought you to New York? I know it was a big event that happened in United Nations. It sounded something like change the world, save the world, and I think it's a very huge name to be invited to and to do something, and I think you have all the powers to do that. And can you please tell us more about that?
Hello, it's a really pleasure to be here today in Ukrainian Museum. Amazing place, and we will talk, I think, today a lot about cultural part of our life, our existence, and how it's important. But yeah, let's start from the beginning. I was invited to change the world.
Yeah.
So basically, it was an event organized by Association of Diplomacy, Italian Association of Diplomacy. I was invited to also be part of United Nations panels and headquarters. We were talking about sports, Olympic values. I was sharing panel with amazing athletes with Italian legends of sport, with football players, and also with football player from Iran. They also now going through a really difficult time because she was forced to leave country because of Iranian regime. And yeah, we shared our stories and we talk a lot about what's going on.
I'm from Iran, and this moment, as you know, there is a really hard situation in my country. I don't even know my family is alive or not because the regime shut down the internet, and it's about 1 month that we have any news from them.
It was an event organized for students. It was more than 4,000 students at this event, and it's basically future diplomats. It's people who is studying politics and who want to be also part of diplomacy movement, and yeah, so they basically are probably future ambassadors of their countries.
I mean, you're ambassador of Ukraine, and you were introducing your specific case of being disqualified, but you've been introducing this case in the United Nations. I do know you had an address, you had a speech in the United Nations. I've seen the photos, it's been received very well. People had standing ovations.
We are not barbarians. Even despite all of that tragedy what we have, we are still following the rules. I learned the rules, and to honor athletes, to honor your family members on the Olympics, it was normal thing. We see it each Olympics, it's normal. It's still a great question why I was denied to do so. Of course, I could be just an athlete and I just can do trainings and competitions, but at this time I cannot stand aside. Some things are more important than medals. You understand it especially in time of war. You see your friends are dying, you met mostly on the funerals, and it's crazy hard time.
You need to tell a little bit more about what you were trying to deliver, and if you think you did a good job, do you think you delivered the message?
It was many things. So first of all, it's important for me to discuss what's going on in Ukraine. So basically, still a lot of people don't pay attention on what's going on in Ukraine. They don't know what scale of war we have. So for me, like, it's important in any stage where I can to do it, just to tell what's going on. I try to tell it through the stories of my story about disqualification, or stories of athletes who were pictured on my helmet, or just stories what I witnessed like every day, like in social media with my friends or colleagues. And also, of course, we discuss a lot about Russian athletes and Belarusian athletes. For me, it's also important to spread the message that we should keep our sport environment safe from war propaganda. Definitely, we all understand that sport is not out of politics, and sport is part of politics. And you always will have like influence of politics on the sport. But main reason of and main value of sport is our values, and it's to bring peace to the world, and it's peaceful movement. So we should keep this environment safe from the war, because it's opposite from the peace. And now we see that Russian athletes, Belarusian athletes, they're highly engaged in the war propaganda. They're part of propaganda events. They're part of military services. They're collecting money for Russian army. They're supporting Putin. And it's basically like opposite from peace. So in my opinion, they shouldn't be part of international sport community. And yeah, so that was our message in the United Nations. And yeah, I think message was delivered, and many people also had now little bit wider point of view like on the situation.
Do you think it was received positively? Do you think people mostly support the idea that Russian athletes who supporting war, who publicly stating things in favor of Putin, devoting their victories to Putin, should be disqualified?
Я хочу поблагодарить вас, Владимир Владимирович, за ту поддержку. Я знаю, что вы очень нас поддерживаете, паралимпийцев. Как вот когда я выиграл первую медаль, я посвятил эту медаль вам и всей нашей большой стране.
I hope so.
I mean, this is another interesting thing, that this story became famous because it's a great injustice. It's very unfair what they did to you, because they're basically bringing back Russian athletes, Russian culture on every platform. In the same time, they disqualifying Ukrainian athletes just because of commemorating those who died from this war, not even calling on any action against this war, but at the same time being disqualified. It's a great injustice. And this is what triggered this support and attention to this. But do you think it would last for a long time? People forget about injustice very fast.
It's a good question, and it's up to the people. And now we see that the IOC continues to support Russia. Now they're creating, even these days, they're creating a lot of pressure on the international federations to bring back Russians. And yesterday, I believe it was news about figure skating union, yeah. So they try to bring Russian representatives in figure skating, and IOC like really put a lot of pressure on the international federation. IOC continues this path to support dictators, and it's really sad that they support Russian regime.
What the impact do you think it had at some point, when everything happened? What the impact it had on Olympic Committee, and what a long-term impact may it have?
Disqualification or?
Yeah, your disqualification.
I believe it was a pretty good example how much hypocrisy we had in our system, in our Olympic movement. Basically, for me, it was very painful, of course, because I was getting ready for this competition. But if you just try to be like not as emotional, it shows that rules are wording of rules is pretty like, you know, it can go in any way. Like it's this decision to disqualify me, it was a discriminative decision. Even in this Olympics, we had similar cases when people tried to honor their family members or their colleagues, and they were like not disqualified, and they were not even received any warnings. So basically, it shows that it's a lot of double standards, and it's not right. Also, it shows that IOC don't really care about values, and they don't really care about Ukrainian war. They try to pretend that they care just probably for good image, but they not really care about it. And for me, it's very painful because as a kid, like I was dreaming about Olympics and about this like values and about be part of this huge family. But looks like it's not a family; it's just a business for IOC leadership.
I had one question, but I want to change one. There are a lot of people bringing up right now the fact that you talked about those athletes who died because of this war, and it's a good, amazing thing that their names being public, and people get to know those names, and they find out about the athletes who died because of Russian war. But there are a lot of people asking you if there were any connection from your part to the families. Are you doing anything to support those families at this point? Can you tell us more about it to share with the people so people would know what a process, what things are being done on this endeavor in this field?
Yeah. So first of all, I knew some people from who was pictured on the helmet. So it was my teammates. Some of them were people who supported me since my beginning in skeleton sports. Some people we were spending time when we were volunteering together in 2022. We were delivering some aid to people in the Kyiv region. Some people I knew because we had some trainings together, like in one arenas. Some people I knew because they were friends of my friends and or of my colleagues. So basically, like it's a sport community, and I think in every country, if you like, it's as huge. Some people I didn't know, like it was a lot of kids in the helmet from east of Ukraine who was died because of Russian shellings. So some people I didn't know, but also I tried to show on helmet some variety, like that it's not only adults, it's not only kids, it's not only men's, it's not only women's, it's not only one representatives of one sport. So like it's a huge variety and it's huge numbers of people. Because each of them, like it's also a symbol of bigger scale. On the helmet, it's just 22 people, but overall, it's more than 650 athletes who were killed. And athletes are also the same part of society as any other area of our life and the other people. So we had a lot of victims each day in this war, and it's important to remember their sacrifice and remember the price of our freedom. About supporting, so we received some donations, but all the donations came to our charity foundation. So I can't benefit from it. So it comes to now we need some time to process and to scale a little bit work of our foundation because we had it since 2022. Mm-hmm. But now with all of the opportunities and attention, we need to work on a structure a little bit and just to rebuild it. And because of this bureaucracy work, we need some time. But in a short time already, we will finish like some first projects to support families of athletes. And to be honest, like we were thinking about to support families, but families don't want to have any support. They want to do some things to honor their family members and to honor these athletes. But updates will be in social media, and I think you will see it soon. By that time, we already gave with Ukrainian company Rozyetka one generator to a sports center in Cherkasy. It's a pretty, I would say, decent donation and decent work, and it was very needed support. So price of support was around 22 for $23,000. It was price of generator with work to put it in Cherkasy and to connect it with everything. And why it's needed? Because of blackouts, because this winter was very hard for Ukraine, and a lot of power plants were damaged. And because of that, it was really lack of electricity in this training center. And because of that, they cannot proceed, like when they have blackouts in the city, they cannot proceed with trainings, with competitions in this center. It's a big facilities, and it's, I think, main facilities in Cherkasy for sport, for kids. And so basically this support is very needed, and we already did it. So I'm really proud on where we stand now. And it's basically like not so long time from the disqualification itself. And since that time, we already did a lot of great work. And I think in 1 month later, it will be even more, much more. And I'm really happy about it.
If I'm not mistaken, this lady from Olympic Committee, she said that she will cover that.
I said I would be more than happy to work with him and his dad to go out and to ask leaders, governments to try help with generators. That was one thing that his dad said is, you know, there's a need for generators. So again, the IOC has in the last few years given over $10 million to Ukraine, to the NOC, to sports, to athletes. We want to continue to do that.
She promised.
But I suppose it never happened. Has she reached out to you or anything?
It happens pretty often with people who is from dictatorships. They're promising something, but it's never happened. She was long time part of Mugabe regime. She was Ministry of Sport in Mugabe regime, and so basically she promised us. She promised she will contact us, me and my father, and she will try to, not try, but she will connect us with some governments, and they will provide some support. So it was a promise, but since our last discussion with her was at a day of disqualification, so it was 12th February. So since that time, we didn't receive any generators, any email, any message. So it basically was empty promises.
But I mean, that's also talks a lot about you, because you didn't wait for anyone to do that, and you just made it by yourself. You know, with support of organizations, etc., you made it happen. So I think it's a great thing.
No, but because it's basically like we're losing sport every day, and when we don't have these training facilities working, if we cannot wait for Mrs. Coventry to fulfill her promises for like years, because in I don't know when she's planning to help us, but in 1 year, in 2 years, we will not have these kids in sport arenas anymore. So it's important to support them now, because now it's a problem. And if we can do it, we should do it, and we are ready to take responsibility for that.
If coming back to the families, you said something very important. You said that families are not actually asking for any money for themselves, but what they're trying to do is to honor their loved ones, the one that they lost because of this war. And I know you told me that some of them were very touched emotionally when they saw their children on the helmet. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
So first of all, also to make it clear, like I didn't contact it yet, like all the families. So I contacted just a few families, just because of like cannot process it all at the time as a foundation. But
and it's 24 of them.
22 of them.
22 of them.
But suddenly, like it's less families, because some families were killed fully, like, so they don't have any relatives left, or like, let's say, close relatives left. So basically, like, we cannot contact even all the families, but we contacted already a few families. I saw some interviews with some other families, and I didn't see like any critics from them, like, and I think it's most important thing in overall in this disqualification and the situation and story about the helmets, that families were very thankful for that. And for them it was very motivational and inspiring. And for me, I think it's a main goal, like to honor their families and to support them at this time. I will meet my dad already met one of the family, and I will meet one family on my and when I will come back to Europe and to Ukraine. Yeah, we will meet them and we will start to do our projects. It's already like in the process, so we already start to do a few first steps, but just don't want to like talk about like specific things. But it will be like some sport kind of sport facilities, outdoor facilities in honor of one athlete. Then we will give fund support to one of the sports school where one of the athletes, another athlete, were starting his career. Yeah, so and we want to also provide some support for other like teams, just in honor of this athlete. So it was a request from the families, and we will try to do that work. And I'm really proud of it, like that we can do it, and then that we can support also our sport together with families of these fallen athletes.
Do you remember a specific point? Was there any moment when you exactly decided to do the helmet?
No, it was like I think 2 or 3 weeks prior Olympics. I just had an idea, like it would be wonderful, like to put these athletes on my helmet and compete together with them on the Olympic Games, because many of them were representatives of Olympic sport, and for them, at some point of life, definitely it was a dream and like to be an Olympian. And I think it was a great gesture to honor them, to compete there together. For me, it was also very inspirational, like, and for me. On a training week before Olympics in Olympic track, it was very also inspiring. It was motivational for me to look on this helmet and to understand that I'm also not racing just for myself, or like I'm racing for these athletes too, because they cannot do it anymore because they were killed. But despite that, like now they're here with me, like despite that they're being killed, and they also can fulfill, let's say, like even like. In this like rhetorical way, like, but they can fulfill their dreams.
It's very hard to predict what it's going to be like in a week or two, specifically in current political environment and a war environment. But what I know for sure, then in a few years when you come back to Olympics, everybody will be very excited about that. And what I know for sure, people are already excited for you to come back, and they wish you to come back. What are your plans? I know you already shared it with many journalists, but I wanted you to repeat that, to tell more about the fact that I do know you're coming back. Tell us more about that.
No, it's a plan. I'm not leaving sport. I'm 27, so I'm in pretty good shape, and I'm ready to continue. Now these like weeks I had finally like some I would say days off from the trainings, because season is finished, competitive season is finished. It's also for some people it's very surprising, but we are not just racing at the Olympic Games. We also have some different competitions, European Championships, World Championships, World Cups, and our sport is not only about Olympics. Of course, Olympics is like a main, I would say, most famous stage of our sport, but with that, like we had a lot of different competitions, and this season was really difficult, because first of all, to compete in Olympics you need to qualify, and we make a great job to qualify there. And so this season was long, and now I have some days off, so I'm able to be here, to be in New York, to do some work with Charity Foundation, and then just to attend some events. But with that, like I'm still an athlete, I'm still doing trainings like almost every day, and I'm still in pretty good shape, and I'm not going to leave sport because of disqualification, and definitely like because of this disqualification.
I just wanted to clarify for people to know it precisely, that you are not disqualified to participate. You were disqualified to participate with a helmet.
No, we don't have any like times.
Ban for time.
Yeah, so it was just like purely discriminational decision to disqualify me like from Olympics because of helmet. Like it's not that I violate some rules, I would say, like in a sport regard, or I don't think, first of all, like I didn't violate any rules, because I was not able to do it, because I was not able to attend even field of play. So it's already like pretty
questionable.
Not a questionable, but I mean it's quite crazy like to disqualify people when they didn't commit any violation. So yeah.
But basically, you were
Basically, I'm not disqualified for any time. And if we have some competitions, let's say today, I can compete there. Like it's not that I cannot compete. I'm planning to also continue to do trainings, and I'm also planning to compete some of the races next season. With that, also we will have some court cases, and we will try to, to fight for our justice, because I believe we were right in this decision to wear this helmet. We were not wrong, and we want to prove it in the courts. And then, like a big goal is to compete with the same helmet in 4 years in France Olympic Games, and to win a first medal for Ukraine in skeleton sport.
And just once again to clarify that you were basically, which is even more unfair, disqualified for intention to wear the helmet while you're participating. You were not even participating to be disqualified in the first place, for even if disqualifying for that would be unfair and injustice as well. But they didn't even let you do that. This is a very important thing to underline for people to know.
But I mean, like, whole overall situation regarding disqualification is pretty questionable, and we will come back to this first question about the rules. And so if we skip all the law details part, it's just interpretation of some human being of word expression. And for some reason, expression like my helmet with athletes, with my colleagues who were killed in the last 4 years, it is expression. But let's say kippa, it's
the traditional hat.
Traditional hat of Israeli athlete with names of victims of Munich 72 is not expression. With that also, let's say it was also very viral helmet of US athlete with venom. So venom on your helmet, character, it's a not expression, but I mean again so it's very debatable. And also we had a lot of, again, examples, people honoring their family members, and it is not expression, but mine is expression. So this disqualification was unfair. It was a lot of injustice. It was no strong law basic for that. And it was purely to discriminate Ukraine.
Yes.
And to support Russia as we see it now.
Yeah, first of all, it was very big discrimination against Ukrainian, specifically athletes, and against Ukrainians in general. It shows a lot of actually discrimination and unfair attitude to Ukrainians, and it's something that I think a lot of journalists need to cover and talk about. And talking about the journalists who supported you a lot, you had, coming back to your visit to New York, you had a great conversation, great interview with sport journalist Ariel Halvani. Can you tell us more about that? He actually expressed a lot of support to you when all of that happened. I've been watching his live streams and his videos, and tell us more about how he's been covering that. And you finally had a chance to meet him in person, if I'm not mistaken. Was it first time?
Yeah, so he was covering, I think, with CBS. And he was there, he was at the Olympic Games, and he was covering, and I saw his video about my disqualification, and I think he was straight saying that it was wrong decision. I think it was headline was what they could possibly do more wrong. Yeah, so, and for me it was nice to have support from him, because I'm watching his video a lot, and
And he's a big fan.
Yeah, but I'm not kind of a biggest fan of UFC and MMA, but I'm watching it a lot, and I also watching and supporting our guys who is now part of UFC, and try to get their championship belts. And I saw these legendary fighters, and I think some fights were very famous, and I like the sport. I was also in my childhood for a couple of years was part of the sport. And I was watching his videos, so for me it was really also nice to see his support. And we messaged with him in social media, and I told him that I will be in New York, and he invited me to the studio. And yeah, we had a chance to talk with him. I think it was a great talk, and we discussed a lot of different things. And yeah, I'm really grateful for this invitation, and I'm really again thankful for him for inviting me, and also for his support back then when it just happened.
But it also shows that it touches different types of sports. It also shows that people from different fields actually paid attention to that, and also was covering. And like I've been there on a backstage with you, so I would love for you to share a little bit, because there were like photos of athletes there, and you were recognizing them, and you were like so much like home there. You knew everybody there. You were talking your own language with them, and the vibe was very, very friendly there. Tell us a little bit more what impression, like his studio, all of this thing made on you.
No, first of all, it's a great studio, and I'm also a person, I like these like details, and they had so many like great things. And also as a kid, like I remember like I had a PSP. It was like a portable console, and we were playing like some games in wrestling games, so WWE. Like it's quite a big thing in US, but it's not as popular in Ukraine. But these games, like I remember them pretty clearly, and I see like these people who I was playing as a characters on the photos in his studio. I saw many of course UFC fighters, because I'm watching UFC. I'm really like it. So a lot of different souvenirs from these athletes, and signatures, and many really great things. And for me, like it's in this perspective, we are like pretty close, because I'm a fan of this sport, and it's amazing to see all of that souvenirs, all of that things. And yeah, I think vibe was pretty nice of conversation, and we had amazing also discussion about our like life in Ukraine. We discussed some of our athletes from different sports. Again, like we discussed Usyk, Svitolina, and yeah, it was a great time, and it was a great discussion.
Talking about souvenirs, you gave him something from yourself. Do you want to share about that?
Yeah, it was a rosary, like, and it's some traditional things which was made by also wrestling coach.
Oh God!
Which is interesting part, and it was handmade, so fully handmade. Yeah, small souvenirs, just like to be reminded, and I think it's also for us, for Ukrainians, are very typical to make these like small gifts to people. And yeah, for me it's also like I feel very nice also when I can make these small gifts, and yeah, to give some extra small happiness to the people.
Yeah, and also it's meaningful. It has engraving on the box. Remembrance is not a violation, so it's directly connected, and he was very happy to receive that. So I think he can have a little bit more of a souvenirs, since now one of them will be blue and yellow, Ukrainian one.
Yeah, it's a good part.
Yeah, it's a good part. It's a good part. Talking about the good part, there are a lot of good people didn't feel good about what is happening, and they were not capable to be silent, and they stood out, they said something. And in our weird reality, even just saying something, it's already a lot, because people many times becoming silent when they see the terrible crimes happening, but they're not saying anything. And when someone says something, it means a lot. And Ariel Halvani had a great coverage of what happened, but there was another person who made another public statement. It's a famous actor, Ben Stiller, and you had a chance to meet him as well. Tell me more. How did that? Had that thing happened by itself? When he published something, did he texted you before publishing it, or he just published his support? How?
All this disqualification discussion was taking place days prior, and then disqualification itself, it was crazy days for me. So I was fully my mind was into this like situation. I tried to also investigate press conferences and all of that. And I was not paying so much attention to the social media. And for some like free time, like I would say, like it was minutes per day, like I tried to like be like separated from the scandal. I watched some movies, and it was also a movie with Ben Stiller, like it was a dodgeball. And then when we had a press conference in Milan already, like I was told that, okay, did you see, like, and I'm oh no, like what is happening? Like Ben Stiller supported you, and I was like, oh, it's a big thing.
Wow.
And then a few weeks later, when we already I messaged him in social media, in Twitter, X. No.
Yeah.
So I messaged him, and yeah, I told him that I'm going to be in New York, and he's also there, and yeah, so we arranged meeting, and we had a chance to meet him. Amazing guy, like, and also another thing that we were able to also to be on a set of a new TV series, and it was like amazing experience, like just to see how magic happens, how he's acting, and it's sometimes really hard to say like if he's acting or not. So he's good at it.
He's very natural.
Very
He's
natural.
very natural.
But also he's very sincere, like, and you definitely can feel it. He also, what was really nice about him, so sometimes people just doing it because it's like, let's say, I don't know, hyped or something, but he's really like had pretty deep knowledge about regions in Ukraine and about what's happening, when it's happening, and it was really amazing, like, and you see that he's very sincere with that, and he's really like making a deep research when he's doing something, and support from people who is really like committed to what they're doing. It's for me it's very important, and yeah, it was amazing experience, and it was great to meet a legend, and because as a kids, like, we all grown up on these movies, and it's my generation, I think, and we just grown up on cartoons which he was part of, like Madagascar or like Zoolander, like comedy, like all comedy genre, like you always remember his face, like, because he was everywhere.
Yeah.
And amazing movies, and also he's a little bit teach us of history of New York, like, yeah, and Natural Museum of which is here, like, Night in Museum, and like amazing movies. It's amazing person, like, to also to meet, and I'm happy about it.
Yeah, it's basically his works became part of our identity, our personalities, because we grew up on it. It's like something that is a part of us. I don't want to make like sound it unfair. I've been there with you, so what I'm trying to say, to get from you those emotions that you may not have time to share, or like emotions passing by, you may forget all of this experience. So I want you to share this right now, so to remember to share, and also to be honest, he is also a very inspiring person. It was a very inspiring thing, and I think both of us felt very grateful for all that he did.
Yep.
Because
he was in Ukraine in 2022, like 1 month after a full-scale war just started, and I think even not many people from Kiev like was in Kiev at the moment, so they were like pretty scared, but he was there, and it's really amazing thing to see that he is still committed to what he did in 2022, and his support is constant, and it's important.
Yeah, I think it's also, for all Ukrainians, it means a lot that you've been able to voice this gratitude, because this is something that all Ukrainians share. When someone is, supporting Ukraine in tough times, everybody is grateful, but not everyone has a chance to say in person how grateful we are for that. And you did something special as well.
Yeah,
for
also
him.
about presence, yes.
Yeah.
So, for me, like, I'm also very inspired by our culture, and again, like, we are in a museum, and like culture is our thing, it's Ukrainian thing. We have pretty long history, and we have amazing fashion, and it's, of course, we're now talking about vyshyvankas. You may see it in every city, in every part of the world.
On every child and grown-up person, everybody.
No, but if it's Ukrainian, but
Yeah.
now it's getting more popular, and even people, foreigners, like wearing vyshyvankas, and I think many can agree that it's pretty stylish piece of clothing, and then it's very like big variety of them, and you can find, I think, something for yourself. Like it's not as hard like to find something for yourself, and yeah, we brought him like vyshyvanka and Kozak vyshyvanka.
Yeah.
So yeah, now, yeah, and I believe it was his first vyshyvanka. So I was surprised. I was thinking that he has like already a lot of vyshyvankas, but it's the first vyshyvanka for him, and he's really looking good at.
It fits him well, 100%.
Yeah.
It
so
was like if it was made for him in the first place. It was very good, actually.
Yeah. People who is selling vyshyvankas in Ukraine have a really like eagle eye, like just to.
Yeah, eagle eye, yeah, 100%.
To understand it like from the photo, like fully like size, and then just to be as perfect fitting as he fitted in this vyshyvanka. So it was
Yeah.
I think it was really nice.
And he was very excited to put it on immediately.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
That's a good sign. And
Maybe we will see it in TV series.
who knows? God bless. Maybe he watches right now, and that's
knows?
it. Yeah. He was excited. You call him Cossack. He actually wrote himself that he's a Cossack. He added this in his answer on Instagram, and he once again said about how important it is to voice everything, to say things that are important, and what was fascinating and interesting when you were sharing things with him, he was very knowledgeable. He already knew about a lot of things, about the Donbass, about other things. And it's not like there is a lot to share with him. He actually pays attention and he does it very genuinely. So that's actually one of the good parts of many good parts that you did here in the United States, in New York. But one of the aside things that you do and things that not many people know about you, that you're actually a physicist and you're actually trying to help Ukrainian education here. Tell us more, first of all, about your physicist background.
So I finished, first of all, UPML. It's like Ukrainian Physical Mathematical Lyceum. It's affiliated to Taras Shevchenko University. It's amazing lyceum with I think one of the best in the country and maybe in the world. We had a lot of kids in our lyceum who is taking part in international Olympiads in science, and they're very successful at it. Very bright kids, very strong teachers, and it's amazing facilities. Then I finished Faculty of Physics. I had a couple of publications in scientific journals about my work. It's regarding carbonium nanotubes, and we investigate how they react on low temperatures, big magnetic fields, and so it was my work, and I'm still pretty excited about science. I'm not a scientist, but now I'm fully, I would say, busy with my sport career, but still I had a lot of respect and still try to support science. And
you
now
feel very passionate about that.
Yeah, and but yeah, also it's of course because science is part of our sport, and our sport is complicated and had part with when you should work with your sled, and it's a lot of physics involved.
Can I just jump into this? One of the person when we were meeting here in New York asked you amazing, actually genius question. Someone asked you how do you stop when you are sliding down in such a crazy speed? And your answer was very it's a pure physics. Can you tell?
Pure physics is uphill. You're going to.
Yeah, then you're going uphill. This is how you stop. It's just physics.
It's just physics. And still I'm pretty I like science, and also as every other area of life, we already spoke about how our sport facilities were damaged because of blackouts. The same way now, if you talk about Lyceum, which I finished, it's also were damaged, and they also had blackouts in this district. And with that, they had some couple of generators, but they not keep going with labs. And for physicists, even for young physicists, it's important to have enough electricity in these facilities to do labs. And now we are trying to provide also them with solar panels that they have enough electricity, and it's also I would say not a more efficient way. Yeah, so it's less expensive for them to keep it, and so that kids can get a better education. So it's basically our project now. Also for further things, we want to also support Faculty of Physics, because in Faculty of Physics situation much worse. It's much bigger institution, and because of problems with water supplies and because of very cold temperatures, a lot of tubes were blown up. It's also purely physics. So when water is frozen, volume is bigger, and then tubes are being blown up. So that's why when you had a cold winter, it's usually everyone recommend you not to keep water in the tubes, if you have some heating system, or it should be circulated. So if water just in the tubes, it's blown up. So it's happened with Faculty of Physics, with some part of it. Also because of problems with water supply, because of Russian attacks. So half of the labs are not working. It's crazy cold in the facilities. And we need to support them also with some basic needs. So some repairs, because now at the moment, last time when I was there, it was fully like education online. And we are talking about students already, yeah, so like it's adults who need like to do labs, like already proper labs, who need to do like some scientific work, so they cannot do it because nothing is working or like it's broken, and it's just like a few rooms which are like functional. So it's important to also support them because it's our science.
Yeah, it's our future. There are a lot of actually questions, and it's a big field that we should cover. First of all, when you're saying you're trying to help, I want to immediately jump in and emphasize you have a foundation, Heraskevych Foundation, created in 2022. Right now, we're also cooperating with Razum for Ukraine, specifically on the solar panels. So, like, I'm emphasizing it for people who are watching us to go to both Razum. If you're watching from the United States, if you're watching from Ukraine, go to Heraskevych Foundation. Try to support, look what to do to help specifically this endeavor. But when we're talking about this, we're talking about basic needs, like electricity, solar panels, some other things. But I do know that it's very painful for you, and you're very passionate about general situation of science in Ukraine. And you're talking a lot about brain drain from Ukraine. Tell me more why it is so painful for you, and why is it so important for Ukraine to have?
Yeah, so basically now I think you all follow the situation regarding like our specialist who is traveling all across the world, like, and also our drone systems and technologies is very modern. Like, I think it's one of the strongest technologies in the world right now, and our people really capable to do great innovations. But behind every innovation is people, like, and basically, like, it's people, it's scientists who can do really like big things. It happened already in history a few times, like, and the biggest, like, I think innovations were committed like by the scientists. Like, if you're talking about some big names who is well known in US, like Oppenheimer, Feynman, like all these people who is creating like some good or bad, but like crazy
history changing innovations.
Yeah, but I mean, like, they created, and all the innovations in Second World War, like it was in every like difficult period of time when you have a war, innovations is very important. And people need to do this innovation, so we need to support these people, and it's a scientist. Now situation, because of also like blackouts, because of not lack of possibility to do like proper like scientific work, a lot of people are leaving, or a lot of people lived like in young age, and some people like try to speculate it's because of mobilization or because of something. But for scientists, and as I see it in my lyceum, like for people, I think it's much more scarier, like to not grow to the full scientific potential. It's important to understand that these kids, like already in the age of 12, 13 years old, they're already starting to do like this preparation for international Olympiads in science. So their whole life is science. Like, they're fully committed to the science to do some great things. And it's not meaning that they're not like in Ukraine, or like if they're leaving. They just don't have any possibilities to do scientific work in Ukraine right now because of the situation, and because abroad, like, you have much better facilities, and you have, to be honest, like much better system of science. And yeah, so that's very painful for me, because we are losing very great people, and it's like really like a brain drain, like, for us, and it's important to support them and to change that situation. It's important to create for them good opportunities to do scientific work in Ukraine. It's important to cooperate with institutions abroad to get them better labs, better practicums. To also maybe, like, in now these times, to invite teachers from other institutions from abroad. It's important to do projects and to do scientific work, proper scientific work, how it's done like in other countries who is best in science. And so that will be, I hope, part of our future projects, and we will be also try to do impact on that matter. It's important, and it's much more important than you're thinking, because also here, like, another problem that it's no spotlight for science. basically nobody knew like what they're doing, like how they doing their daily work. It's kind of stays unknown, but despite that it's unknown, it's very important because again, like if you're talking about innovations, we're talking about people who can do these innovations, and it's huge area. And we have some good examples, some institutions who is now doing well, but definitely scientific institutions are in struggle. Now we are starting our I would say work from the small steps. We are starting from lyceum, from faculty, but of course in potentially like it's a whole area of science in Ukraine. So like we have a lot of institutions also, great institutions. We have Institute of Low Temperatures in Kharkiv, where I was also like, which was part of my work, and my scientific publications. Now it's in pretty huge struggle. We have amazing facilities like institutions in Lviv. We have some institutions all around Ukraine, and like we need to support all of them potentially. Yes, so of course now we are not capable like as a foundation to do such a big a big thing. But now we will start with small projects, and we will try to found partners and who can also join this like bigger project and to support science.
What would you say to those people who may tell you that we can do anything for Ukrainian science, but when we win the war? Why should we do it right now?
No, because first of all, we can't say so when we knew when it's finished. So if person like or people cannot say when it's finished, then we should do it now, because we can wait like for 10 more years, 20 more years, and then we will not have any science in Ukraine. We will not have any kids who is doing physics, mathematics. We will not have any athletes if we just support Ukraine after full-scale war like finished or like war is finished. So it's important to support them now, to create possibilities now, because it's our future. And when you invest in science in country, like it's investing to the future, like, and it's very delusional to think that it will hold up somehow in this difficult time, and then you can just came and create something, you know, from nothing. It's not as easy, like, and it's important to support people who we have now, like, who is committed to do their work now. And also, I believe that in some also level, like especially like in a school education, high school education, we are not as bad, and it's also these common projects with international partners are very important for world, and like we able to share like our experience and to make education better all around like Europe, and I think also all around the world. We are not as like bad as people, you know, think, and our science is strong, and you can watch like Olympiads, international Olympiads results, and still in Ukraine we had pretty decent results. We had a lot of medalists on these Olympiads, despite the fact that we have a full-scale war. We all remember like COVID time, and it was something, yeah. So like people were sitting at homes, and how was education was damaged for the kids, and especially in school. But it was very small problem if you compare it to what's going on now in Ukraine. Now in Ukraine we have shellings, blackouts. Kids cannot join online lessons because of blackouts. They cannot join lessons because it's air attack warning, and you cannot do like any lessons, or you should sit in a bomb shelter. And of course, like it affects our school education much more than COVID time. And even despite that, we have these kids who is now winning some medals or like in international Olympiads. So our education system is very strong, and I think it benefits all the parties who is engaged in this partnership. So it's not only Ukraine who is benefiting, but also other countries.
And I would say honestly that if you support Ukrainian scientists, it may bring you closer to the end of the war. Because if you have science, if you have all these brains working together, it's not one or another. It's another thing that can help end this war. This is what I would actually add to this.
No, it's part of it, of course, and innovations is part of full scale. And again, like coming back to the question, now I think at this point, world start to recognize value of Ukrainian expertise in the drone technologies, and it's because of innovations. Because everything which traditionally was strong, like things like tanks and which cost like millions and millions of dollars.
Long-range missiles.
Yeah, but now tanks can be destroyed by like two, 3 drones, and it's cost like $500, let's say, like, or like $1,000, and you're destroying like few million
Equipment.
few million, yeah, and if you price it like, you can destroy tanks and drones. Like it's a new way of war, like, and it's, we should admit it, like it's just new generation of war. It's much more effective, efficient than what we had in the past years and like in the past wars. So basically, like it's a new technologies, and Ukraine have like one of the best expertise in the world, if it's not the best expertise, and it's because of innovation. So if we want to have like these innovations keep going to be better and better, we should invest in science. We should invest in our future.
I would also add that under the war, you have the same problems. You can have science or other things, but you actually have more intense necessity to do something with it immediately. It's not like something can wait. Nothing can wait under the war pressure. It's actually everything should be done at the same time, and this is what makes war so difficult. This is one of the biggest pressures, that you still need to do everything at once, and it's actually even more necessary to support those fields and the science specifically. If we don't.
No, definitely, we have some areas of life which can wait, but science is not one of these areas. So science, we should support science, and it's important part of our future.
If going a little bit deeper into this passion of yours of science, it's probably kind of almost a cliche question, but I'm pretty sure everybody asking you this question, so let's make it online. How did you decide to be in physics? What inspired you to studying this?
No, I like math from like childhood, from 10 years old, and I was already I was already part of Lyceum, but not UPML, but another mathematical Lyceum. And it was also influence of my dad, so he was like pretty strict with me, and in terms of like school. And if I'm not doing well in a school, then I cannot do any sports. So like it was kind of, you need to do all together, like
Negotiations. It's almost like business negotiations.
But also another thing that I had a great teachers, like all this path, and especially in mathematics, like, and from the 5th grade, and with that, like I had this love to numbers, and to just to be like in this, like I would say more technical part of lessons, like more technical part of education, and then I was able to be part of UPML. And for me back then, like it was quite a challenge. So like I wasn't planning to go there. I just want to check my like knowledge, and I passed exam, and then I was accepted to this lyceum. And then it's amazing facilities and amazing teachers, and especially like if you talk about like math, physics, like it's amazing facilities. And we were like, you really feel special in terms of like physics and math, and also we were working a lot. So like it's Lyceum where you have like 6 working days, so not 5 as usual. And so you have like 1 fully extra day of lessons. You have labs, like, and proper labs, not just like teacher show you how to do it, but you have exams on labs. So you should already like to be really good at everything, and how to count all these like measurements, and how to count like % of mistake and all of that. So
Okay.
You already
Now you're talking math to me.
No, but I mean like I can explain it in an easy way. Like it's also a pretty good quote of our teachers, and I don't remember like it was in the Lyceum or university. So if you cannot explain something to 5-year-old, then you don't understand it.
Oh wow! I never heard this one.
But it's a good one.
Yeah, it's a good one. It feels me bad if I cannot explain stuff. Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like in terms of everything, I believe.
Yeah,
but also
100%.
in terms of physics. So you have any machine like which is doing labs. It's have some like, let's say like if it's optics, yeah, it's have some lenses. So lenses are also have some % of mistake, and you count it in your labs. And even when you have lab, like it's a difficult one, so every machine is have some own like % of where it should be mistaken. So you have a ruler like in school, and it's like 2 millimeters. So, but if you go deeper, like it's also have some measurement like in mistakes. It's also, it's very usually it's written in some like small numbers. So like it could be like, let's say 1.10 millimeter, like, and it's like, so we count it like, and when you have like a lot of machines, when you have a big lab, you need to count it all together, like, and also count as in formulas.
Okay.
So it's also like a mess, but it's like you should understand it, like. And for me, like I would say, like it was interesting, like from Lyceum, and then I was just I really like math and physics, and then I just entered physics faculty because it's just my thing. And first of all, I think I should be thankful to my teachers, because it's important also job which is not always so in like staying in the spotlight, but it's very important people. And if they're also committed to their work, then kids are committed to these lessons, and then you have also much better education. So I'm really thankful for Lyceum that they have such a great people in this Lyceum, and of course to my parents who were like also paying attention to my studies, because as a kid you have a lot of interferences like from the world, like
Like a TV, cartoons,
yeah,
other
TV,
stuff.
yeah. So you want to go
Or
to
your sports game that you just told me about.
yeah. That's how I was skipping some lessons. So. I could be not as good in some lessons.
But then it brings you to Ariel Halvani's interview.
Yeah.
Not
but it's
bad,
part of life.
not that bad.
But it's part of life, and I mean, like, I'm really thankful for parents, and I'm really thankful for teachers for that.
I mean, I suppose you probably like to read detectives then, because it's solving problems.
Like it's just more like easy literature for me. So, and also I started to read more like when I was already grown up. Like it's not as a kid. Like I was. It's I think most unlike lessons, it was literature, and like
You didn't like it.
I didn't like it really at all. Like
You don't like classic literature.
no, but I mean like just don't like to read like at that age. So I was like into the math like and everything. But when I was grown up, I started to read a lot, and I read classics and I read everything. But it's just like for me like literature, you need to grow. You need to like get to the point when you want to read it, but not when you're forced to read it. When you're forced to read it, then it's like doesn't work, at least for me. But now, like in some trips, like it's I like some detectives because they're like not as big books usually, and it's like just one book per trip, like per flight, or like let's say like so you just have like whole book, and it's not really hard to read. So it's easy to read. Because I also read a lot of literature like which is like pretty intense. You need to think a lot, and sometimes you need to reread like pages a few times, and some biographies like and some books about like science surrounding like it sometimes can be quite hard. And some classic also like classic books like classic literature like sometimes it's also quite hard to read, like you need to like process like all of that stuff and all the details because it's important. But detectives for me like it's kind of like easygoing, like it's sometimes when you already had a lot of things going on, you just want to like read a fast book like without any like pressure, like
To unplug, to just unplug your brain.
Yeah.
Okay, in that case, what is your favorite sci-fi physicist movie?
Probably it will be a book.
Okay.
Martian.
Okay.
So it's quite a good one, and
You read it as a book. Everybody watched it as a movie about him growing potatoes on Mars.
I tried to watch it as a movie like a few times, but I just read it like.
Yeah, you didn't like it?
No, I don't know, but like just book is such a like. It's very usually like when you read a book like and necessarily good one. Movie is good, but I mean book is always better because you are engaged like for like couple of weeks or months to read it. But book is really nice. So like, and I believe they're also like very pretty good at describing all of that physics process, like how it should happen in space, and it's interesting to read. Of course, like a popular one and fancy one, Interstellar. Like
My favorite.
it's a great movie
Of
and
all times.
yeah, but Martian and book, like it's kind of a more precise in a physics perspective. Yeah, I also watched Oppenheimer, but it was more like a drama movie, but it's not
Yeah.
science movie. Not
I mean,
as orientated.
If we're talking about Interstellar, one of the fascinating things that physicists were talking about, it was the first time they made a big graphics of a black hole, which was the closest to the real one. And after that, only the photos been released. And they realized it was like the closest to the reality. Because, you know, science doesn't have that much money, not only in Ukraine, but in the world, they didn't have enough money to do this precise graphics. At least what I read in scientific articles, that they were very fascinated to see what they did, but I might be mistaken.
Debatable. Debatable. It's science has a lot of money. Like it's not a kind of like that we don't have any money, but I mean for them like it's not always needed to have these graphics because for them for science it's important to prove to have like strict proof
Of its existence?
No, I mean like proof of model. So it's not just like because we think so. Like it's because you need to prove like by the laws of physics, and or you should create something to make a photo of it. So what was did it like what they did later? Yeah. So like it's important like to have all this special lenses, special satellites, and have like now HOPE satellites and all of that fancy stuff. But I mean, if you read it more, like it's important like in that you prove your point. So like it's not just because we think so. It's also what you learn in school, like when you're doing some physics. So like if you think that it's the right answer, and even if it's right, it's not right till the point when you prove it. So like you need to prove why it's right.
And then explain it to a 5-year-old child.
Why it's right, yeah. I mean, like, yes, you need to have like understanding why it's that or why it's not that. So,
Okay.
So sometimes like it's not kind of still scientific guys from science, they're also doing modeling, all of the stuff, but it's kind of not. It should have always strong basic. It's important part of physics and mathematics. Because we have another scientist who can disprove you like points. So like it's kind of like always.
Yeah, Einstein had this fight as well.
No, like always, like you have some theorem, like I need to prove it, and then you have people who don't believe it, and you need to prove it to them through the laws of physics or like formulas in mathematics. And then it's kind of how great ideas are created, how these things which are created our world right now, what we are sitting in, like. Because we are in the modern world, and like you have lights. It was physics at some point. Someone was creating these lamps and all
Cameras.
of that. Yeah, understanding of everything. Yeah, so like back then it was like because of stars and how they were positioned in the sky. That's how we understand that we have our Earth is not flat. Despite that, we have still a lot of people who didn't understand it, which was okay, another topic.
Another topic.
Few thousand years ago, like people prove it, but still people cannot.
You're talking about proving the point. You just you were
proving
just
the point,
you were just saying.
So, also how Earth like circulates around itself, and then all of that. So how stars are positioned, and where is the sun, where is another stars, where like. Our systems, galaxy systems, and it's all of that. Like it was science, pure science. Cars, it's science. Like you have fuel which is burning. Like and it's science. So like I mean, it's everything is created by our knowledge of physics, of mathematics, of chemistry, like of biology, and all the medicine. Why people can now live like for 100 years? It's also because of science. It's because of this investigational work. So it's our daily life, and it's just like sometimes with like now with all the social media, you forget about like really things which are moving our society from generation to generation, and it's science, and that's why like Einstein will be like eternal guy. Yeah, so he could be he could do that like for 100 years, 200 years, but this basic law of physics which he investigated, they will be forever with us, and they will be forever studied by us, and he will be forever part of our society. And that's it's very strong thing about science, because even cultural thing could be disappeared, but science is like, it's very kind of
Strong glue,
yes.
if we can call it like that.
No, but it's a basic thing for just to have this like life, and that's why scientists are like very important people in any generation, and much more like well remembered people. So if you talk about Aristotle and all of that generation, I think it's just remembered by like scientists.
So you do like Martian better than Interstellar?
Book.
Only his book. Is it a Interstellar book exist?
I don't know.
Yeah.
To be honest.
We should give that.
Yeah, we should investigate.
Yeah. Okay. So talking about science, kids, and coming back about the fact that science is important everywhere. This educational topic of helping out younger generation to study, to inspire them, follows you in New York as well, because you were invited to the local school, Ukrainian local school. Can you tell us more about that? And how did that happen? And what was your communication with the kids? I do know they ask you some fun questions because they're kids, but they're investigating this world.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It was an amazing meeting. I was invited to the Ukrainian school, and which is stationed here, like in New York. It's already will be soon 10th anniversary of this school, and for me, like I think it's also a very important thing, and it's educational thing, but it's also cultural thing that also our kids, despite that they're like living here, like in US, not in Ukraine, but they still like are pretty well known with our culture, with our language, and they're like part of Ukraine.
They're connected.
Yeah, they're connected, and they're part of Ukraine, even despite that they're not in Ukraine. Again, like I'm very thankful for these facilities, for people who is running these facilities. It's very important. Kids were like amazing, and some kids were not recognizing me, thinking that I'm a principal. And
Yeah, I've been there. You enter the room, and they asked.
Who is that? Yeah, principal.
Yeah, they asked the question, who is that? And they said, principal.
Ви всі знаєте, хто перед вами стоїть? Так. Хто це? Як? Є ще варіанти.
А ви справжні чи ви? Ви популярні, так?
Ну, я не знаю, ви скажіть.
Коли ви виходите на двір, всі просто купити щось поїсти, всі за вами біжать.
But although, except the fun questions, there were a lot of emotional questions. They were actually they felt a lot at the moment of...
Justice, also like regarding disqualification and...
Було тяжко, коли вони сказали, що ви не можете бути в
Так, це насправді важко, тому що ти дуже довго часу готуєшся до цих змагань і потім бачиш таку несправедливість. Але при цьому для мене це було важливо, тому що ми зберегли честь, ми зберегли пам'ять про наших спортсменів, які загинули в цій війні, і для мене це набагато важливіше.
Це дуже нечесно, тому що коли ви зняли шлем просто з сім'ї українців, то ні. А коли до росіян такі бігаються своїм флагом, то це можна, це як?
Це гарно, дуже гарне запитання. І насправді я погоджуюсь.
Kids were very supportive, so even kids like understand that it was unfair, like but with that like also again like kids were amazing, and they were asking a lot of interesting questions, and I had a great time. Yeah, so it's always a pleasure.
Yeah, and one of the kids actually asked you a question. Like, their questions are very honest and very basic and kind of grounding you also to reality, because one of them asked you, what do you mean they disqualify you? Why would you just go and slide there? Doesn't matter what they said, just go and slide on this.
Yeah, to be honest, sometimes it feels like we should really be in this like kids world, and it's not this like world what we have now, like with hypocrisy and double standards, but just to be honest and transparent, and that's really something very bright about kids, that they're very transparent and honest. Like they don't know how to lie like in yet. So they're like, it's nice, and probably I should do that next time if I'm disqualified. Just go and slide.
I should go and slide. Yeah, because they just don't understand all the difficulties of this hypocrisy and why would anyone do such things.
Yeah.
And that is why it was like very emotional. But it also brings you back that it's very interesting how you became inspirational person for the younger generation, and your personal desire to help out education, and then you invited to the school. So that's actually a separate example of you being very connected to this part of a generation and how they are involved a lot and how they're emotionally going through this as well.
Yeah, they're still, it's another thing about this war, like that kids in this young age, and like they're already like engaged in some of the processes. Even if you try like to separate your kid and with all what you can, like, but you cannot separate them from the reality. Like they're still part of like community. They're still talking with their friends, and like they still know what's going on. That it's a war. They're still being attacked as any other like people in Ukraine. They're still going in the bomb shelters, and of course they're still like part of the society, like, and even if you try to separate them from the war, but they still know that we have victims in this war. They still know our like military structures, who is working and where is working, and they still like affected. So it's a sad part about this war, that we cannot separate it, and it's also our future. But I think also these kids, they have such a like young kids especially, like they have such a high morality at this point, at this age, that I think it will be our best generation. Like, and I hope that when they grown up, we don't have a war, and they can really like in Ukraine, they can rebuild this country in the best possible way, and they can make it much better than it was. Because of course, like we are not blind, we also have some inner problems. Mm-hmm. Of course, now external problem is much bigger, so we are concentrating on that one. But still, we have a lot of inner problems, and I hope these kids will solve it, and they will not have external such a big problem as we have now.
Coming back to the children and games, I know about another game in your life. How did chess came to your life? When did you start playing?
I started to play it actively, like when I have an app in the phone, Chess.com, and I started to play it a lot. But I learned this game like from the young age. I don't remember like exact age, but like I was young, so like 7, 8, 9 years old. And yeah, I started to play it, but actively, like kind of as just for like displug your brain. It's kind of a thing, just to be concentrated on some other thing and just not to be like fully occupied in your head with everything else. It helps me to concentrate on some things, and yeah, I learned it a little bit, and I can play now in a pretty decent level.
Do you have?
But of course, it's always debatable because it depends on who you're playing with. But yeah, amazing game, and I really like it.
Who are you right now at this point? Is there anyone who you're inspired with? The chess players?
No, a lot of Magnus Carlsen, like he's amazing guy, and his coach, like he's also pretty like supportive to Ukraine, Peter, and I'm sort of like we're messaging, and he's reposting my post a lot. And
yeah, you're in connection with him. He's amazing. He's a legend.
Yeah, so Peter was like a coach of Magnus for some time, Carlsen, and Magnus is like himself, like he's a legend. So he was also showing some support to Ukraine. But Peter like is kind of like a very active guy on Twitter, like in support of Ukraine, and he's of course writing a lot about chess world, because chess suddenly like it's very pro-Russian kind of a federation, and they have like pretty like as Dvorkovich, he's now head of chess federation. He's kind of a fan of Soviet Union, of Russia, like, and he's fully supportive of Russian regime. Also, another chess player, like he's like I think one of the most active athletes who is supporting war, like Heraskevych. He was part of, he was already visiting occupied territories in time of full-scale war, like with Z letters, with everything. So he's also a politician and he's part of political parties. Yeah, it's really sad, and it's really important that we have like voices, big voices who is against all of that. Yeah, we have also think it's important to remind that legend of chess, Kasparov, he's Russian, but despite that, he's very supportive to Ukraine, and I think he was from the very beginning, he was pretty clear, and he's translating messages as like, we can talk about peace when Ukrainian flags will be in Sevastopol, it's in Crimea, and it's or Simferopol. I don't remember exact, but it's important, and it shows. I think Sevastopol, but it shows his pretty strong stand.
Clarity. He doesn't have debatable opinions. He is very direct.
Because it's very like now widely seen in kind of Russian opposition, which is like against Putin, but not really against the war, or like they against war, but they think Crimea should be occupied by Russia, and this like for me it's like not acceptable, like, and it was illegal occupation of our territory, and it's like it was violation of international law, and it's kind of like understandable that it was not right, and like if you have this like 50-50 measures, so like maybe not, maybe yes, for me it's like unacceptable, and stance of Kasparov is for me like pretty clear. And I really like respect it, because for him definitely like it was not as easy, like because he's Russian and he's got such a huge heritage in the world, in Russia, and for him to make this stand, it's costs a lot, and I really appreciate it, and I'm really grateful for that.
You also had a little chess game in New York in Ukrainian mission to the United Nations, and it was a special game because you literally won and took their chess board. Yes, tell us more about that. And was it a difficult game though?
After Change the World event, we had the chance also in some next days to meet Melnik, who is now United Nations representative from Ukraine. It was a great pleasure, and I really appreciate their work advocating Ukraine, obviously, like Ukraine truth on what's going on. And when we enter like Ukrainian mission, like in the United Nations, this like building, it was like chessboard on a shelf, and it somehow get to the point when we were like playing on this chessboard.
It was literally a question. You literally wanted to have that chess from very beginning.
I was like, oh, nice, somebody play. No, it was like, oh, nice, somebody is playing chess, and it was like, no, yes, no, and then like somebody told like it was not me, but that
it was me. I literally said like, can we take your chess?
Can you take? And guy was saying, if you want it. Like,
if you can play with me and win this chess over, you can take it. And I think it was the only phrase you were waiting for.
And then we jump in and we won this chessboard. We had a great game, like, and we won this chessboard. Then it was signed, and then we put it on an auction and get some money for our project for solar panels for the school. So I think it's a great story, and I'm also really happy that it led to some good things, and it's not just like, I'm on the board, but we want some money to provide kids with light in these days. So it's really great.
Was it easy to let it go? Because it's actually very
not easy. It's a really great story, and it's not as easy. But I mean, if it's for good purpose, I'm willing to give it.
So you used this chest as a bit during the auction organized by Ukrainian stand-up comedian Anton Timoshenko, one of the biggest Ukrainian stand-up comedians. He had a tour all over the United States and specifically in New York. And you've been there, you participated there, and you also had an interview with him before that, before he came to United States. And you used not only the chess, you also had a few other bits. Tell us more about that and what you brought to New York and how you've been collecting money specifically for your foundation, specifically to support Ukrainian education.
Так, тут є підпис пана Мельника.
Вау.
Підпис виграно у чесній боротьбі Владиславом Гераскевичем. От.
І шахи теж тут є, дивіться.
Так, там одне ой-ой-ой.
Виставляєш це як лот, виходить?
Получається, да, за дітей.
1502, 1502,5, 1500. Богдан виступає. 3. Правильно, дякую вам.
It was really nice to be part of this stand-up show, and it was amazing. And whole this tour, like 100% of money which we're collecting by Anton Timoshenko in this tour is going to armed forces of Ukraine. So I were able to also be part of this stand-up, like just as a listener, and then afterwards, like also to take part in auction, like just to provide our items to collect for our initiative. One item was starting beep, race beep, which was like we are usually using on the competitions, on the World Cups. It's very limited, so we don't have it like in hundreds of pieces, so like it's very limited. And one of that was signed by me, like in kind of a personal sign. Second one was very special beat, and it was T-shirt from Azov, which was signed by commander of Azov, Denis Prokopenko Redis. And yeah, it was also. I think it was the best thing in the auction, but it's of course also debatable because Anton has also amazing items. And third one was chessboard. So I have these 3 items to get some money for our initiative.
Right now your visit is coming to an end. Is there anything you wanted to wrap up with? Because first of all, it wasn't your first visit to the United States. But it was your first visit to the United States in this kind of form.
Yeah.
Before that, you were training here, you were preparing for competitions here, but this time you're here as a voice, as a support of Ukraine, and also as a part of the big event which called Change the World, as a voice of changing the world, which is a very different role to play than sports.
To be honest, like it's not as different as many could think, because when we visit like last time, we also had some interviews, not in such like capacity or like not in such a scale, but also it was interviews for big media. And we are also talking about Ukraine a lot, and we are also talking about our victims of the war. Like I put some phrases and quotes of people who suddenly died in this war in my sled, and it was always about raising the voice and remind the world. And that's also why like sport as an area like now is important in Ukraine. Like it's to raise the voice and raise awareness about what's going on in Ukraine. Because as we see now, like many people keep forgetting about what's going on like in Ukraine. And for us, like as an athlete, it was also always a mission. So it's the same mission, but just in a little bit another like form. But I mean, for me, it's nothing new, and I'm willing to speak in any capacity, in every scenario, like about Ukraine, about what's going on in our country, because for me now, I think it's much more important than anything else in my life, because we are literally like facing devastating losses, like we have facing devastating tragedy, and it's not right to just don't pay attention and to pretend that everything is fine. Of course, like you shouldn't like. I would say like, you should also always find the time like to enjoy life. That's why like Ukraine fighting for, like to enjoy life, to fight for a freedom. But with that, like you should always respect and remember like what's going on in the world and in Ukraine, and to remember the sacrifices, to remember the victims of this war, and then to remember that you need to support it in any way as you can, because it was unfair, and if we allowed this injustice happen in Ukraine, it will happen in your country soon or later, and it will happen all around the world. So we should be very, like I would say, strict with international law order, like and with justice in the world and with the freedom of free world.
How long time has passed since this disqualification happened? It's like about 1 month.
1.5 months, let's say.
1.5 months passed since disqualification situation, this injustice happened, and a lot of things has changed. Like a lot of things has happened since then. Like now you're in New York, you're trying to raise the awareness, you're doing so much to be the voice. Can you tell me, what do you feel, how that changed your life? Because it feels like this was not months and a half, it feels like it was like a year or something, because so many events happened since then.
To be honest, like my life didn't change as much, like, and we already had a foundation, so it's not new foundation which was created after disqualification. It was foundation what I have since 2022. We're still advocating for Ukraine. That's what I did, but in kind of smaller direction. I'm talking about disqualification of Russian and Belarusian athletes. We're advocating that topic since 2022, since the beginning of full-scale war. Traveling, like as an athlete, we're also traveling a lot. So it's, to be honest, like it's not as much directions. I was not able to provide support for education, so it's kind of a new direction. And that's because we have some opportunities now, and we are able to collect some money, and we are able to collect some new connections, like to provide the support. So it's kind of a new project, but with that, if you're talking about support of some sport facilities, we already did it. If you're talking about support Ukrainian army with defensive things, which saving lives, we already did it since 2022. If we're talking about cooperating with someone like from abroad, like and with US, let's say, like or Germany or Portugal, we already did it. So like it's to be honest, like my life changed completely like in 2022 when full-scale war started. It was kind of a huge, I would say, turnaround in life. You have something completely new, but now like it's to be honest, like that's why I'm not kind of lost, and I'm not since disqualification itself, like I wasn't like in a position where I was lost somewhere. I was already taking part in some kind of like events where I met a lot of politicians from abroad. So yeah, it's not a big change, it's just scale is bigger, but if you it's also a reason why we are not now in such a rush with foundation, because I already have some experience and understand that some processes you cannot rush and you need to have some time. But at the same time, if your system, like which you build, like of your work, like if you systematically build it up, well, then you're able to do it in a bigger scale. You can do it without extra nerves, and you can build up, like if you're systematically like ready to do big scale things, then it doesn't matter like if you're doing one like smaller thing or bigger thing. When system is ready, then system is ready. So that's why we are taking our time, because we are planning to do a lot of great projects in a bigger scale, in much bigger scale. And yeah, so we are just getting started.
I love it. I love all the interview. I will do only one question that most of journalists, professional journalists ask in the end. Is there anything you want to add to this interview? Is there anything you want to share more?
Slava Ukraini!
Героям слава! I love that. I love that. Okay, let me shake your hand.
Hi there guys, if you end up here with me, you probably watched all the interview and you might even liked it. If it is so, please hit the subscribe button, put a thumbs up to this video and share it with your friends. And I will try to do my best to cover more stories on Ukraine.